One more minute. Not getting any text messages, I don't think. Okay, cool. Oh, that's weird. It goes to 0 people. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe more people are here than I realize. Okay, so I'm just going to start and hope that everything is kind of just like being recorded as we go here. So I decided to do this, but then I purposely kind of put it out of my mind, this lessons from loss, the missed conversations, because I'm really thinking about it all the time and I'm writing about it all the time in my book, You Are Not Broken. But I decided, that I didn't want to prepare for this because the preparation was already there in all the inner work that I've been doing and just kind of rededicating my life purpose really to this being valuable. This way, we lose the opportunity to have a conversation with somebody, dead or alive. And it's really an invitation to do inner work on yourself and, kind of like forcing myself to not prepare in the traditional way with like a PowerPoint or like note cards. Really brought me back into contact with one of my biggest lessons from my mom. Um, you know, this idea that like showing things a certain way is protective. Um, and it's funny, like one of my most intimate, slowed down moments with her as a kid was always getting ready for the day. I would sit and watch her put her face on. Um, and one of the biggest part of that, which is so my mom and people who know her probably might recognize this kind of like peachy pink smile that she had. That was all a testament to lipstick, really. And I was fascinated at that part of the preparing for the day, which was putting on her lipstick. And I remember, like, I think she finally noticed that I was fascinated, and I got a chance to put on lipstick. And I said, which took me a long time to remember some of these memories, by the way. Another invitation from the missed conversation was just like the permission to remember. But anyway, I put on the lipstick, or she put it on me, and I said, "My lips feel dead." And I had a lot of micro moments like that when I was a kid where it was like she spoke too much of the truth, and my mom was like, "But it's pretty, right? And it looks pretty." And I remember that kind of a message in a lot of things, like, I just would see more of the truth. There's a story with me and my mom, and I think some of my family know it, where she wouldn't have me. She wouldn't give birth to me unless she had her purse. And again, for me, I think that connected with her needing her lipstick. Her lipstick was in her purse. Like she wanted to be prepared. She wanted to look a certain way. And in the beginning of my grief process, when I kind of hit that kind of like, okay, so, you know, we felt it with a diagnosis, like time is running out, but like because of what the diagnosis was like doing to conversation, like we couldn't have hard conversations with mom because she was just like going through so much. Um, and I felt a little bit of anger with that. Luckily for me, even in her passing and missing the opportunity to have so many conversations, it wasn't the bitter, resentful kind of conversation, like pain and anger. It was, you know, like the call to healing kind. And I feel really grateful for that because I started to realize that, you know, at 40, when she passed away, um, that was the age that she had me. And I was sitting there 40 without enough inner work to have a conversation with her, and that must have been where she was at too. And it just welled up in me like the truth for all of us, like that you really, the best thing you can do as a person is to have this inner conversation with yourself, to do the inner work. As a parent, I'm speaking to you now. Like, you will never protect your kids as much as you protect them when you do the inner work. Um, and I just realize that now, and it brings me so much closer to myself and to people in general. So I thought, you know, to not be prepared would be a good idea because I'm anxious about what I wrote about in this book. But I'm not anxious because you're here and you're going to read it. I'm anxious because I'm here and I wrote it. And I need to be inside that anxiety and like face it to be authentically me. I can't have a prepared way of talking about it as a way to cope with the anxiety because that defeats the whole purpose. So I thought I would invite you, family, here today to my experience with the missed conversation, because it was a call to do inner work for me. And I guess I'm just kind of hoping that it maybe could be for you too. And I just want to be more myself. And I'm a little scared that I wrote about all this and I just want to keep going. So I'm gonna queue it up on my phone because I don't want to risk, you know, moving screens. I thought to be really brave and face this, I would read a little bit of what I wrote. And I'm gonna, be mindful that it's Super Bowl Sunday and also just be mindful of myself and like where I want to stop. So I'm not gonna read like all the, dedication. I'm just gonna start reading the introduction. It all started with dying. I was falling, and when I hit the pavement, my teeth shattered, but somehow there was more falling to do. I went into an abyss. It was a path to a darker kind of death, not the lighted tunnel one. I felt it, and my body went away from me, but more horribly, I heard people suffering in between life and death, and I was aware I was one of them inside my soul for a moment. Then I woke to ambulance sirens. I was exposed but held in someone's arms on a city street sidewalk, and we were waiting. I was a month from being 19 years old and afraid. Would I ever come back to life without my teeth to hold my face in the smile that had been so familiar to me? If there was no smile to wear, what would happen with the shame of my choices? I knew that even a quadruply broken heart was not an excuse for false bravado. I followed a band and did too many drugs to pretend it was some path to freedom and not just a broken attempt at escaping myself. I waited for the ambulance to scoop me up and bring me to the fixing place, the hospital. That was my first brokenness confrontation, or so I thought. Then I woke up again and I was 40 years old and had fallen asleep watching my mother in her own decline towards death. She was leaving the bed like a whisper. I was on watch for exactly this reason, to block her from going to the bathroom on her own, but I felt dead asleep, and I felt alarm everywhere. Mine had been a body that had not slept fully in years. I was a machine of survival mode living, so why now was the machine malfunctioning and failing at watchfulness? The why now was another whisper in the room. My mother was whittled down to 70 pounds, and I guess I finally was tired from looking at all the life leaving her body. I thought my body was used to this kind of drain. I had struggled to keep on my own weight through the years, trapped in a body that only nourished itself to get by and survive my life, but not thrive inside it. Seeing her frailty was different than seeing mine. I was shocked to see her slipping away on her own like a dream or a horror. I wasn't sure anymore. Was that really her? Was I dreaming or watching her ghost and she was already gone? Pancreatic cancer had taken hold, and she could not walk on her own at that point. As I came to remember this, my own yelp at the sight of her fully woke me. It startled my father awake too. Neither one of us knew how to stay fully awake through this. To say we were tired from the death watch would be an understatement. We were each on separate islands of grief, relentlessly swimming to shore, yet sinking midway with effort. He swooped in, and I watched their bodies make a three-legged race version of a trip to the bathroom. At the toilet, I watched my father be the deep-throated rescuer my mother used to tell me stories about. His voice was low and gentle, just like my mom said it was in all her stories when they first met. Unexpectedly, I had tears in my eyes and realization boomed loudly in my head. You are not part of this. With that, I suddenly realized how long I'd been on the outside of a story looking in, and there was another narrative underneath this. I won't ever know why it was right then 4 decades of my real story would come back to me. We have to be left to face ourselves, is what I've come to realize. We have to miss the conversations we should have had in order to find them there, demanding you to do the inner work to reach them. So many memories of the other narrative, the one that was only mine alone, came back. And while it would feel like loss initially, I would be angry my mother was not emotionally available in life or in death to talk to me about it all. I would come to own that if I had done the inner work, I would have been ready to have them, and that was on me. The best gift we can give our missed conversations and the severed connections and unfinished emotional wounds with others is the inner work and conversations we need to have with ourselves. There are all sorts of ways to be a parent. None of them can be good or bad when you look at the spectrum of opportunity we have as adults to do inner work before entering any relationship. We don't get tools to do inner work. We have to find them. I think I found them. What flooded me that day was the fragmented sensations of feeling responsible for the ways others felt, too sensitive and open to what people said, a sense I was left often because I could never hold back what I felt. It was a bad thing to be. Open was a bad thing. That's what I felt that day, it all coming back. The memories then came back, evidence I had felt bad about myself for a long time. And then I was open to feeling the other memories: childhood molestation, sexual intrusion, and being manipulated. It all flooded me. I don't know why it was a sharp clarity right then and not so many other times. Other traumas started coming back, ones that snuffed out this core childhood trauma, but also were the same pattern. It sliced my mind. You don't have to protect them from this anymore. But I was still scared and non believing. I needed a way in to see the truth of my own story when everything else was false and fragmented. Fear had stopped me too many times. I needed to see my story now and heal the way it had been making me feel and act so I could find a way I wanted to feel and act again. It was a premonition of some sort or another, this idea that my real story needed to be found. I had been a therapist for almost 2 decades, so I already had a way of seeing and sensing this kind of thing in other people and helping them find the damaged versus the healed storyline inside. It would take me over 4 years to bend these tools I have as a trauma therapist back, such that they would peel away the truth and show me I had created the Toolbox Approach for healing fragmented life narratives in clear phases of inner work. It's ultimately an approach for repairing the self and making it feel whole, no longer fragmented, but you might also call it your destiny to heal brokenness, and this is just a method of entering the journey and tools to do it. I know now it is a way that is working for me. Before this, my parents hunched in the bathroom together while I was out at a sea with the deathbed as my own private stranded island. When I awoke to this, I was alone in a deep realization of loneliness, and I knew that I had been there for several decades. I had been on this deathbed island much longer than the startled slumber of that day, and it was me that was dying on it, not my mother. The story my mother told me came back like muffled sound. I can't say how I remember her from the womb telling me, "I need your help, little one." She told me I was the key to making it all work. It was muffled into the walls of the womb space room I lived in, growing a belief in me that I had to help. I remembered through tools like the ones you will read about that I had felt I had to help this family I was being born into, and that set a script to my life I never had to read to take my lines. I am a strong believer to this day to use my life for helping, but I know now that I must know my own story profoundly and have a strong sense of self if I am truly understand the path all of us are on. Childhood trauma did not fit in with the script of helping my family. My father was a very important leader, important as a leader in this story, and I could not distract him from his role with tears and bad choices. When I woke up that day, I realized I was holding an ashamed child's thoughts. You are so stupid for thinking you were helping. You're bad. No one wants you. Do better. I could not pinpoint when this thought became one to live by, but I know I could not disappoint anyone from that day on. I know that no matter how hard I tried, I kept breaking myself anyway, disappointing myself and assuming I was everyone else also, only hoping a sweetness in me would somehow absolve me of it. When I woke, I realized holding things was what was wrong with me. That was what was broken in me. I wasn't part of this story. I had been told to help, and I felt such profound shame and brokenness for failing. I felt abandoned by a mother who was leaving now, but left me back then first. And yet I had also slipped away from family all on my own, believing in a damaged narrative. I held on to pain that killed the child I was and left her shell in its place. I woke no one when I slipped away, but I was awake now. All this time, I felt I had to protect them from the secrets in me, and now, in a deathbed awakening, it was somehow over. I know now we all kill a part of ourselves so we don't have to face damaged narrative and heal it. I killed a part of myself off so I wouldn't have to face it, and I lived like a shell of me. My mom was too frail and caught in the storyline, even on her deathbed, but somehow she showed me how much we are all taking it to the grave to not tell our stories. In frailty, she still reached for her lipstick and tried to get herself to the bathroom. I finally abandoned her effort to make things look a certain way, fell asleep, and then, despite the tiredness of grief and loss, I woke up and found the beginnings of my self-healing. We just have to wake up to pain eventually. My mother slipped away, clenching lipstick and untold stories. I let her go and never told her. While I felt that loss, somehow I didn't close a door, I opened one. It did take twice as long as her dying to heal this half-alive living I was doing, but now I have the tools for all the phases of healing: narrative healing, reprocessing healing, and relational healing. I will show you how to enter narrative healing and can show you the other tools for it, then other phases to consider, the primer tools, and how to enter self-directed learning in the reprocessing healing phase. Lastly, I can provide a structure for you after you finish reading regarding how to hold space for whatever healing journey you want to have and do a relational healing phase of your journey. But no matter what, read on and discover it's truly up to you to wake up to the fragmented narrative inside you in order to heal. I think I will pause. Part of me kind of wants to keep going because I haven't given you everything, but that's not my, I don't think that's my job anymore. I think I should probably like enjoy my life a little bit more. And it's a little sad to me that my mom had to pass away for me to live more. But I think that she actually ended up doing her job. As many mistakes as there were to see when I did the inner work, I had just as many mistakes as she did. And that's I think the job of all of us in the end. Own your mistakes and look at your life and be there for other people through that, not protecting them from your story. Thanks everybody for attending. and hope to see you at some family gatherings.